You put on clothes this morning without thinking about it. You didn't debate it. You didn't question it. You just did it, the same way you've done it every single day of your life. But here's what nobody ever told you. The moment your ancestors first covered their bodies, it had nothing to do with modesty, nothing to do with fashion, and nothing to do with the cold. By the time this video ends, you'll understand the real reason, and you'll never look at getting dressed the same way again. There's a reason your body is almost completely hairless compared to every other primate on the planet. And it's not what you've been told. Stay with me. Think about that for a second. Every great ape, the chimpanzee, the gorilla, the orangutan, is covered in thick protective fur. But you came into this world nearly naked, your skin exposed, your body vulnerable, and somewhere between 2 million and 70,000 years ago, something happened that changed the course of your species forever. That shift didn't start with needles and thread. It started with something far more brutal. Your ancestors were hunters, not the slow, cautious kind, the relentless kind. They would chase prey across open savanna for hours, sometimes days, until the animal collapsed from exhaustion. This style of hunting had a name: persistence hunting, and it required one thing above all else: the ability to stay cool while moving fast. Most animals overheat quickly. They pant, they stop, they rest in the shade. But your ancestors? They sweat across every inch of exposed skin. And that sweat, that strange, inefficient, beautiful trick, kept their core temperature stable while everything around them collapsed from the heat. But here is where it gets strange. Because what your body was doing right now, it's not random. Stay with me. To sweat efficiently, your ancestors needed to lose the fur. Hair traps heat. It blocks airflow. It slows the evaporation that makes sweating work. So over hundreds of thousands of years, the thick coat that once covered your ancestors slowly disappeared, traded away for speed, endurance, and survival. Your hairlessness is not a flaw. It is a weapon your ancestors evolved to outlast everything on the African savanna. But a naked body in the African heat is one thing. A naked body anywhere else is something entirely different. Your ancestors were extraordinary survivors, but survival has a cost. A naked body is efficient in equatorial heat. In the cold, it is a death sentence. And as your ancestors began to move, north, east, into regions they had never touched before, they carried their naked, heat-adapted bodies into landscapes that were nothing like the ones that shaped them, into wind, into frost, into climates that would have killed them within hours without protection. Stop. Think about that for a second. The first person to ever wear something, to press an animal's skin against their body and feel the cold recede, was not making a fashion choice. They were solving an emergency. They were using their brain, the same extraordinary brain that had grown larger over millions of years of social hunting and complex problem-solving, to compensate for a body that evolution had not yet caught up with. Remember the question we started with? You're about to get the answer, but it's not what you think. Because the story of clothing is not really a story about temperature. It's a story about migration. It's a story about what happens when a species becomes smart enough to leave the environment it evolved for. Your ancestors didn't develop clothing because they were cold. They developed clothing because they refused to stay where they were warm. Clothing was the price of curiosity, the cost of exploration, the tool that let a species built for one climate conquer every other. Researchers have traced the origin of clothing not just through archaeology, through bone needles and scrapers found in caves, but through something unexpected. Lice. Body lice, the kind that live in clothing, are genetically distinct from head lice. And by studying the point in history when those two populations diverged, scientists can estimate when humans first began wearing garments regularly. The answer points to somewhere between 170,000 and 83,000 years ago, long before the oldest cave paintings, long before agriculture, long before anything we typically think of as civilization. Your urge to get dressed every morning is older than language. This is the moment most people miss, and it explains everything we've been building toward. Clothing didn't just protect the body, it changed the brain. Once your ancestors could regulate their temperature artificially, once they could carry warmth with them instead of waiting for evolution to provide it, They were free. Free to move into mountains. Free to survive winters that would have wiped out every other primate on Earth. Free to reach the edges of continents and keep going. Every migration, every settlement, every civilization that ever rose on cold soil. All of it was made possible by the moment one of your ancestors picked up an animal skin and decided not to put it down. In the time it takes you to blink, your nervous system has already made decisions your conscious mind won't register for half a second. And in the same way, the decision your ancestors made to cover their bodies set off a cascade of consequences that neither they nor anyone who came after them could have fully seen coming. They weren't thinking about civilization. They were thinking about surviving the night. But here's what's counterintuitive. The very thing that made clothing necessary, your exposed, hairless, sweat-soaked skin, was also the thing that made your ancestors the most successful predators on the planet. You didn't lose your fur and then compensate with clothing. You lost your fur, became a running machine, conquered the savannah, grew curious, moved north, and then, only then, invented the thing that let you go further still. The nakedness came first. The needle came second. Everything you wear is the echo of that sequence. So the next time you reach for a shirt in the morning, understand what that simple act actually carries. It carries the memory of a species that looked at the cold edge of the known world and chose to cross it anyway. It carries the ingenuity of people who had no teacher, no blueprint, no guarantee, only a need so urgent it reshaped human history. Your clothing is not just fabric. It is the proof that your ancestors refused to be limited by the body they were given. You don't wear clothes because you have to. You wear clothes because your ancestors were too stubborn to stay where the climate was comfortable. And the question that stays with you, the one that doesn't fully close even after the video ends, is this. If clothing was the tool that let humans cross into every climate on Earth, what is the equivalent tool today? What is the thing you are using right now, without fully understanding it, that is quietly expanding the edges of what's possible for your species?